Can you say absolute bonus day? Hey, Bog, what do you say?
High five!
Yeah! Bro, look, you see up above me? It is cloudy, it is foggy. There's fog coming over the mountains. There's waterfront actually, dude, but there's fog coming over the mountains behind waterfront. Cool enough to be Bog friendly, so I got my boy Bog with me. And it's probably gonna make him bite, right? Always remember one thing, if they say it's supposed to rain, bring your rain gear, and I promise you it won't rain. I really gotta start night fishing. Check this out. I put my power poles down, and that's my hydraulic gear light. There's like 5 bluegills that showed up when I turned the light on, dude. And they're all swimming around it. So I guess all I gotta do is pull up around the dock, drop my power poles, and turn the light on. And it's like a dock light. Chatterbait trick, baby. Yep, that's a good one. How about it, dude? Nice way to start. So this chatterbait trick, I'm gonna tell you guys about it. But I've been killing it with it. It's quite the little sneak trick. There she is. That's a better one. See how I'm just dragging that thing? Like I'm really not reeling. The only time I reel is actually to set the hook. But it's such a nuanced little bite. Like I don't know, it's kind of tricky. And I think that's why it works, is because there's not a bunch of guys doing that. Whoa, 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 whoa. Big old shoulder bass. Come here, big shoulder bass. Ball, like, we'll try to get some more for you. There's a couple different retrieves that I'm using with this thing. The dragging one is kind of the most important, but I'll make a long slang. It really helps if you're on hard bottom like we talked about. Let it sink down for a minute. So the fast one that I'll do is like this, and I drag, and then I almost hair jig it, but it's important you have your rod, perpendicular to the bait, and you need to have like a soft tip rod because it's almost like hair jigging it, and you see how my rod kind of like snaps it, and you do fast reels and it sort of pops the bait up and then yo-yos it, but also kind of, I don't know, kind of, what do you call that? Like slingshots it back and forth. The other one that I'm doing is when there's hard bottom out there, I'll toss that thing way out, let it get down to the bottom, and it's a variation on the same thing. So I'll basically treat this kind of like a football jig. I'll move it a little bit faster than you would with a football jig, but I'm just kind of dragging, side dragging, just like this. And then once I kind of like pop it up and the line is taut, I sort of let it settle back down on a semi-taut line. And all it's doing is, if it's shallow enough, it's bumping the bottom, and sometimes I'll fish it slow. Yep, got a little grass, rip that off. But sometimes I'll fish it slow, and it'll bounce off the bottom. And sometimes I'm just kind of hopping it along the bottom. So it's just going, and then it's settling back down. Much like, it's a lot like a hair jig, dude. Like, if I'm being totally honest, because I'm using a super soft rod, it's on the rank of a cranking rod, and they basically just suck it up. But there's something with that combination of that softer tipped rod and the way it sort of snaps and like slingshots that bait that absolutely drives them nuts. It's always tough to capture these fish on side scan when they're close to the grass, like I was telling you guys about a few videos back. But this one turned out really well. I don't know if because it's all cloudy or what, but you see all those shadows and how it like cups in right there? Those are all bass fishes, dude. She is. Good one. Literally just dragging it almost like it's a jig. Might actually be a real big one. Yep. That's a freaking 5-6 pounder right there. Strong fish. Oh, nice 4 pounder, homies. Yeah, the sneaky chatterbait trick. You like that? I know Bog does, don't you, bud? So this Chatterbait Mini is absolutely naughty, and actually the components on it are pretty sick, dude. The short chain hook, it's like maybe like a 2/0 or a 3/0, but it's stout. It's heavy duty. There's one mod though, if you want to try doing this, especially if you're fishing with bigger largemouth, that will literally save you headaches and save you baits. Otherwise you'll end up burning through a few, which is something that I did early on. What you're gonna do is, the only thing that kind of sucks on here is this little clip right here. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's just like what any chatterbait has. That clip goes through the blade and attaches to the blade, and that's what actually creates that awesome action. But what ends up happening, especially if you boat flip some fish, is the little pincher on that clip right there comes unseated. So all you're gonna do is grab yourself your needle nose, which you should have in the boat, and you basically go to the other side of that clip and you just crimp it down, just like that. It's super easy because it's just wire form. I really hope you guys can see that. So basically all I did was crimp down that little clip right there so it doesn't unseat. Otherwise what happens is, just like the clips we use for crankbaits, it just pops open, or it opens up because it's not a welded clip, so that back part that doesn't open will actually pop off the hinge. So it's something really simple, especially when you're fishing high impact like this. It'll save you some baits. Literally when I first started doing this, I burned through like 5 or 6 little Chatterbait minis because that thing broke and I could never get it to stay again. So before you get hot after it, dude, just pinch that thing down with your needle nose and you will be a much happier person and a much more wealthy person, right? Long cast, move fast. That's big, dude. I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to. That's old Big Biggerson. That's a fat joker. I gotta back this boat up though. Golly, dude. You guys are gonna have to excuse Bog's heavy breathing. It's like 85 degrees, but I wanna break down, you guys have seen this thing in action. It works, and I wanna break down this technique because really every component goes into making it happen. It's one of those techniques, a lot of guys are like, bro, you need this rod, you need this, and that's a bunch of crap. Like, it's not true. You can kind of do it your own way. This one, you can make variations, but I think it's really important that you kind of follow the template in order for it to work. So first things first, what we're using is a 1/2 ounce Chatterbait Mini. You can play with colors based upon where you're fishing. I'm using a green pumpkin, and then I have a little spunk shad on there that's kind of like shad color. The water's a little dingy, and they're definitely chasing bait. I have played around with like a bluegill color, and that does work too, but the shad, I think it's more because the water's dingy, but that white stands out. But I do like that green on there. It's a nice blend of both. It looks like a brim, it looks like a shad, whatever. That's probably the least important part. Now the 1/2 ounce part is important because the depth we're fishing, anywhere from like 6 to 10, 6 to 12, and in order to keep that bait down and actually fish that, it's a lot, imagine it like a football jig, because that's what I've been doing. And basically that head is much like a football jig, and in that depth I'm running like a 1/2 ounce. Now if I go up to like say 3 to 6, something like that, I'm gonna go down to a 3/8 to kind of keep that bait up. We are moving it pretty quick, so it's kind of staying above the bottom. The other component too here is the line. I don't even know if you guys can see that. We're running 15-pound fluorocarbon. I'd like to be running 17. I don't want to run 12. The reason I'm running 15 is it's light enough so that the bait gets down and stays down, but it's heavy enough. You saw a lot of these bites, like the rod just doubles over. Like they just load up on it. I don't even feel them there, and the rod just loads up. So you need something to handle that tension. 12, it gets a little bit sketchy. 15 can handle it. I think with 17, it won't keep the bait down. You have a little more power, maybe up shallower with that 3/8, you can run that 17, but I think part of this deal, especially like the hair jigging thing we're going to talk about, has to do with the sort of the looseness of this bait, dude. Its ability to go up and kind of flutter down, and lighter line really enables it to do that and gives it a better presentation. And this, I think, is the most important part. This is a Halo Rave 7-foot medium. This is like my top water rod, same deal. I have a 721 Shimano SLX on here, so I have a little faster reel, and that medium action rod, it's hugely important because these bites you do not feel. It's a lot like a hair jig, it's a lot like a dead jig bite, but that is probably one of the most important parts about this whole setup, is using that lighter action rod. Don't be afraid of it. I've been fishing around grass all day. I've had no problem getting them out. Even if they get buried, you just kind of go up, chase them down, or you can just put pressure on them and they come out. But that medium action rod and that 15-pound fluorocarbon, probably the most important part, along with that slightly faster reel. This technique, 2 ways to do it. One, I'm dragging. I'm basically fishing this chatterbait just like I would a jig. I'm throwing it out there, letting it get to the bottom, and I'm just using a slow sweep of my rod, just enough to get that blade kind of going back and forth, back and forth. It probably gets the bait like 3-4 foot off the bottom, if that, but it's a very slow deal. And then I'm actually kind of letting it have a little bit of line, feeding a little bit of line back with my rod tip when that thing settles back down to the bottom. So it's basically dragging the bottom. What's really nice too is with the head on these chatterbaits, it is a lot like a football head. So if you have some rocky cover, basically we're fishing around grass edges and then we're fishing shell bars, it's great because it rolls right through that stuff. So the other retrieve, and interestingly enough, we did the slower retrieve in the morning and the faster retrieve later in the day, even though it was dead calm. But I think you had to trigger a reaction from these fish, and the best way to describe it is hair jigging a chatterbait. Casting this thing out to those grass edges, to those hard spots, bomb cast, letting it get to the bottom. And I'm basically pointing out, reeling really fast and stopping and letting that bait, feeding a little bit of line, letting that bait get down to the bottom. But I'm talking like burning it, dude, like hair jig, like burning a trap style kind of deal. And then kill it, let it get back to the bottom. I think part of it is these fish are suspended, but they're also on the bottom. But that fastness, it allows you to cover multiple like different columns in the water, and it creates a reaction. These fish are so beat up between the heat, between the pressure that they're getting, they need something to sort of like trigger them. It's a more compact presentation because it's that Chatterbait Mini, so it's a little bit smaller, caught a ton of fish on it. There's something magic about it, but that smaller presentation, moving so fast, they have one of 2 decisions: either eat it or GTFO, dude. That's it, and hopefully they'll eat it most of the time. It's a killer presentation though. I'd recommend not using anything with a boot on the tail when it comes to a trailer. You really want this thing to move fast and have that hunting, crazy, darting action. So something like a spunk shad, a fluke, anything straight tail on the back. Even take your little easy and cut that boot tail off, but do not use a boot tail. You want this thing fast, you want it quick, you want it darting all over the place. Absolutely sick presentation though, and it smashes them when I literally passed 2 guys who said they weren't catching dick. So try it out. I'll put links to all this stuff at Tackle Warehouse down in the description box. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna give Bog a pat for you. Tight lines, my homies.